The autumn rain was heavy, lashing against the farmhouse windows, each droplet dragging long streaks down the glass, as though the night itself were trying to claw its way inside, up in the attic. Jacob Turner sneezed, dust exploding into the air as he pried open a half-collapsed trunk. He had only meant to find a box of tax documents, something dull, something ordinary, but what he uncovered instead was anything but ordinary. Wrapped in a leather strap, brittle with age, lay a bundle of papers. The edges were browned, curled, like old leaves, and across them ran stains dark, almost black, yet faintly copper in the light. Blood, dried, but unmistakable. Jacob's breath caught. His pulse quickened. The first sheet was nearly unreadable. The handwriting faded and smeared by time, but one line stood out, stark, sharp, impossible to ignore. Do not enter the house on Black Hollow Road. If you value your soul, burn these papers. Jacob's hands trembled. He turned the page. The words were fractured, smudged into ghosts of sentences. Property deed, 1894. Family curse. Walls bleed. The chill that swept through him was not just the attic draft. Something else lingered there, something unseen. Jacob shoved the bundle into his arms and stumbled down the creaking wooden stairs in the kitchen. His mother, Evelyn, sat hunched over a chipped mug of tea. Her tired eyes that seemed 20 years older than her face, lifted slowly as Jacob entered. When she saw the bundle, her breath hitched. Her hands began to shake. Double quotes. "Where did you find those?" she whispered. "In Dad's trunk," Jacob said, his voice tight. "Mom, what the hell is this? These are deed papers. A house on Black Hollow Road. Why have I never heard of it? Why did we live in roach-infested rentals, if Dad owned a house?" Evelyn shot up faster than Jacob had ever seen her move. She ripped the papers from his hands, clutching them to her chest, as if they might leap away on their own. "You shouldn't have touched them," she said, her voice trembling. "God help me. I should have burned them years ago." Jacob stared, stunned. "Burned them? What are you talking about?" "Mom, what the hell is going on?" Her back turned. One hand braced against the counter, the other pressed the bundle against her heart. For a long, tense moment, she said nothing. Jacob's anger faltered, replaced by unease. Finally, Evelyn spoke, her words fragile, her tone weighted with memory. "It was supposed to be our dream home, Jacob, your father and I. We bought it just after we married. A white Victorian, with carved banisters and stained glass windows, and a porch that wrapped around like a ribbon. I loved it the moment I saw it." She swallowed, hard. But dreams rot. That house, it was rotten from the start. Jacob leaned forward. He wanted to deny it, yet the dread in his stomach grew heavier with each word. "The first night we stayed there, I heard them. Whispers. At first I told myself it was the wind, or animals in the crawlspace. But, Jacob, they said my name. They called to me." Her voice cracked. "One afternoon, I found a painting in the study. It was the house but wrong. The version in the painting was older, decayed, its windows black, hollow, like eyes. I hated it. I pulled it down, dragged it to the trash pile outside." Her breath trembled. "The moment I did, the walls groaned. Cracks split across the plaster. And then, Jacob, then the walls bled. Thick red streaks running down, like tears. Papers flew from the desk, stained, just like the ones you found. And the voice came, a voice so deep it rattled my bones. It said, 'Leave. Leave now, and never return.'" Jacob's mouth was dry. His heart slammed against his ribs. "We left that night," Evelyn whispered. "Your father, he was never the same. He lost everything. His job, his friends, his mind. We moved here, but the curse, it followed. Every failure, every loss, it all began with that house." Jacob sat down slowly, his legs weak. The kitchen felt colder, the storm outside louder, closer. And now, Evelyn said bitterly, staring down at the blood-stained deed, you've dragged it all back. For a long while, Jacob said nothing. He wanted to laugh, to dismiss it as grief and superstition. But the stains on the papers were real. The tremor in his mother's voice was real. And deep, deep inside, he believed her. But belief wasn't enough. Another feeling pushed against the fear. Something hotter, sharper, curiosity. That night, Jacob lay awake, staring at the cracked ceiling, the storm outside still raging. The name Black Hollow Road throbbed in his mind like a heartbeat. Louder, louder, until it felt less like a name and more like a summons. He had to see it for himself. And somewhere, far away, deep in the woods, the house that had waited for decades stirred awake. The storm broke sometime near dawn, leaving the air heavy, the ground soaked, the farmhouse wrapped in a hush that felt almost too deliberate. Jacob hadn't slept. He'd lain awake, listening, waiting, half expecting whispers to seep through the walls of this house too. By morning, his head throbbed with exhaustion, yet he forced himself into his suit, grabbed his briefcase, and drove into town. Work was the only thing that might quiet his thoughts, or so he told himself. But the whispers followed him. Not real whispers, not yet. Just echoes in his mind, repeating the same name over and over. Black Hollow Road, at the office. Jacob fumbled through his tasks, his hands moving, his eyes reading, but his mind refusing to stay anchored. Every paper, every email, every meeting note seemed to blur into the shape of that cursed phrase. It didn't take long for someone to notice. Jacob, the voice snapped him upright. He looked across the glass conference table, where his boss, Mr. Harlan Graves, studied him with piercing eyes. Harlan was not an ordinary boss. To the company, he was an eccentric, a brilliant investor with a taste for obscure art, folklore, and occult literature. To Jacob, he was both intimidating and strangely comforting. There was something about the man, his calm voice, his slow, deliberate movements, that made people either trust him completely or avoid him at all costs. Now, those sharp gray eyes lingered on Jacob, longer than usual. "You're distracted," Harlan said. It wasn't a question. Jacob swallowed. His palms were damp. For a moment, he debated lying, brushing it off with some excuse about fatigue. But something about Harlan, something about the way he leaned forward, fingers steepled, gaze steady-made. Jacob wanted to confess, so he did. Halting at first, then faster, Jacob told him everything. The trunk in the attic, the blood-stained deed, his mother's confession, the whispers, the painting, the warning. By the time he finished, his throat was dry, his heart racing. The room was silent. The other team members had already left. It was only the two of them now. Harlan leaned back slowly in his chair. His expression was unreadable, yet his eyes glimmered with something Jacob couldn't quite place. "You said Black Hollow Road." Harlan's voice was softer now, measured. Jacob nodded. For the first time since he'd known him, Harlan Graves smiled. Not a polite office smile, not a forced smirk, but something deeper, darker, almost pleased. "Jacob," he said, "do you have any idea what you've stumbled onto?" Jacob blinked. "A cursed house, a nightmare my parents ran away from." Harlan chuckled low, shaking his head. "More than that, much more. If your mother spoke true, and I suspect she did, then what you described, that painting, those whispers, they're not just hauntings, they're bindings, residual power. Evidence of something that should never have survived the fire." Jacob's stomach turned. The fire. Harlan tapped his temple with one long finger. "Ah, you don't know. You see, before that house stood, there was something else on that land, an old settlement. Strange men gathered their men who dabbled in things they shouldn't have. The locals called them warlocks, though I prefer practitioners. They built sanctuaries, conducted rites, sought dominion over death itself. The town turned against them. They burned the settlement to the ground, or so the records say. Harlan leaned forward again, his voice dropping low, intimate, conspiratorial. But fire doesn't erase power, Jacob. It only drives it deeper. And sometimes it anchors that power, traps it, binds it to the land, to objects, to walls. Jacob's mouth was dry. He wanted to laugh, to call it insane. But his mother's tears, the blood on those pages, the whisper she swore she heard, they all tangled with Harlan's words, until disbelief seemed like the greater lie. "What do you want me to do?" Jacob asked quietly. Harlan's smile widened, though his eyes stayed deadly serious. "We go there, together. You and I tonight would be reckless. Tomorrow, perhaps, I'll prepare protections, charms, wards. You'll wear one, I'll wear another, and then we'll see? We'll see if the whispers still linger, or if the house remembers your bloodline." The room felt colder. Jacob's heart pounded. "Why me?" His voice was barely a whisper. "Because it called your family once," Harlan said simply. "And now it calls you." Jacob pushed back in his chair, shaking his head. "No, my mom, she begged me not to. She said it ruined Dad, ruined everything. I can't just walk back in." "You can," Harlan interrupted, calm, steady, immovable. "Because the truth, Jacob, is this. You'll never be free of it until you face it. You've already opened the door. The whispers don't let go. They never do." For a long, suffocating moment, Jacob said nothing. The rain had stopped outside, yet the silence pressed heavier than the storm ever had. Finally, he nodded. "Once?" Slowly. Harlan's smile was faint, almost fatherly, yet something about it unsettled Jacob deeply. "Good," Harlan said. "Then tomorrow, at dusk, we'll see what waits for us in the dark." The next evening, the sky was the color of ash. Clouds stacked low and heavy, as though the world itself were holding its breath. Jacob sat at the kitchen table, staring at his untouched dinner, his fork motionless in his hand. Across from him, Evelyn Turner watched, her face pale, her hands clenched tight around her rosary. "You can't go," she whispered, breaking the silence. Jacob lifted his eyes, weary, conflicted. "Mom, you can't," Evelyn snapped, louder now, desperate. "I told you what happened in that house. I told you how it destroyed your father, how it nearly destroyed me. If you step inside those walls again, it won't just whisper. To you it will take you, piece by piece." Just like it took him. Jacob's throat tightened. He wanted to argue, wanted to assure her that Harlan would protect them, that the wards would keep them safe, but the words felt weak, empty. Evelyn leaned forward, her voice trembling. "Promise me you won't go, Jacob. Burn those papers. Forget the name, forget the road, please." Before Jacob could answer, a knock came at the door. Slow, deliberate, 3 sharp raps that seemed to echo through the farmhouse. Evelyn flinched. Jacob rose, heart hammering, and opened the door. Harlan Graves stood there, tall and composed, his long coat dripping from the drizzle, his expression calm, almost serene. In his hand, he held a small black case, the leather worn, the brass clasps gleaming faintly in the porch light. "Ready?" Harlan asked simply. Jacob hesitated. Behind him, Evelyn rose from her chair, her voice breaking into a near scream. "No, don't take him. Don't you dare take my son back to that place." Harlan's gaze softened, though his tone remained steady. "Mrs. Turner, I understand your fear, truly, but you must see, this is not avoidance, this is confrontation. The whispers won't fade if ignored, they'll grow stronger. They always do." "Liar," Evelyn spat, tears streaking her face. "You don't care about him. You care about that house. You care about whatever power festers inside it. I can see it in your eyes." For the briefest moment, Jacob thought Harlan's smile flickered tight, controlled, but it vanished before he could be sure. "I care," Harlan said softly, "about the truth." Jacob looked between them, torn. His mother, trembling, pleading, her rosary clutched so tight the beads bit into her skin. Harlan.com, unwavering, his black case, promising answers, protections, secrets, and then, as though from nowhere, faint. So faint, Jacob almost convinced himself he imagined it. He heard it, a whisper, his name, Jacob. It slid through the air, silken, venomous, curling inside his skull like smoke. Jacob staggered back, gasping. His mother's head snapped toward him. "You hear it, don't you?" she cried. "Oh God, you hear it already." Harlan stepped forward, his voice low but commanding. "That settles it. If it has already reached you here, then the tether is stronger than I feared. Jacob, come with me. Tonight." Jacob's legs moved before his mind caught up. He grabbed his coat, his keys, his fear and doubt trailing behind him like shadows. Evelyn screamed, begged, cursed, but he couldn't stop. Something inside him, whether curiosity, compulsion, or something darker, was already bound to the name, the road, the house. Within minutes, Jacob was behind the wheel, Harlan beside him, the night pressing close around them as the car rolled down the lonely country roads. For a long stretch, they drove in silence. Then, Harlan opened the black case. Inside lay objects Jacob didn't recognize, bundles of dried herbs, vials of thick red liquid, a silver crucifix etched with unfamiliar symbols, and a dagger, its blade blackened, pitted with age. What is all this?" Jacob asked. "Tools," Harlan said simply. "Some protect, some banish, some persuade." Jacob swallowed, eyes fixed on the dagger and the wards. Harlan handed him a small pendant, a silver disc on a leather cord. The surface was etched with intricate markings that seemed to shift in the dim light. "Wear it, don't take it off, no matter what you hear, no matter what you see." Jacob slipped it over his neck. The metal was cold, unnaturally cold, as though it had been carved from ice. The trees thickened as they turned onto a narrow dirt road, the headlights carving tunnels of light through the branches. The air grew damp, colder, the kind of cold that seeped into bone. Finally, the car slowed, gravel crunching beneath the tires. Ahead, through the tangled trees, it stood, the house, white paint, long peeled and weathered gray, windows black, hollow, staring. The wraparound porch sagged, its railings splintered, its steps sinking into the earth like teeth into flesh. And yet, it waited. Jacob's breath hitched, his grip tightened on the steering wheel. The pendant at his throat burned cold. Beside him, Harlan leaned forward, his eyes glimmering. "There it is," he whispered. For a moment, Jacob swore. The house whispered back. The front steps groaned under Jacob's weight, each plank bending, cracking, as though the house resented his touch. Harlan followed close, his black case tucked under his arm, his boots silent, disturbingly silent, on the warped wood. Jacob paused at the door. The brass knob was green with corrosion, the paint peeled in jagged strips, the wood blackened around. The edges, as if fire had once licked it, kissed it, left its mark. "Don't touch it with your bare hand," Harlan murmured. From his coat pocket, he pulled a strip of cloth, wrapped it around the knob, and turned. The door opened with a slow, guttural creak. And the whispers began. Not faint this time, not imagined, not carried on memory, but real. Inside the walls, inside the floors, inside the air itself. Dozens of voices, all low, all urgent, layered over one another until Jacob's ears rang. "Come back, stay, never leave." Jacob's chest tightened, his breath quickened. He clutched the pendant at his throat, but it was ice, useless, offering no warmth. Harlan stepped through the threshold first. Jacob followed. The stench hit him like a wave. Rot, mildew, something sweet and foul, the smell of flesh long buried. The floorboards sagged beneath their feet, dust rising in soft clouds with every step. They entered the foyer. A grand staircase, curved upward, its banister cracked, its steps warped. Cobwebs draped the corners, thick as curtains. Faded wallpaper peeled in strips, revealing blackened wood beneath. But the worst part, the part Jacob could not tear his eyes from, was the painting that hung above the staircase, just as his mother had described. The frame was gilded, though tarnished with time. The canvas cracked, yet the image within disturbingly clear. A man, or what once was a man. His face was long, hollow, his eyes sunk deep, black pits staring outward. His smile was thin, sharp, wrong, too wide. Around his throat was a rope, frayed, tight, digging into flesh that looked almost alive, as though the painting breathed with every draft. Jacob's stomach churned. He wanted to look away, but the eyes, those black, endless eyes, seemed to lock onto him, to pull him forward. Harlan's hand clamped on his shoulder. "Don't stare too long," he said. His voice was calm, steady, but his grip was iron. Jacob tore his gaze away, his chest heaving. Who is he?" Harlan didn't answer. Not yet. They moved deeper into the house. The whispers followed, growing louder, softer, then louder. Again, as if shifting from room to room, taunting, playing. In the parlor, the furniture remained in. Armchair collapsed into itself. A sofa covered in mold. A fireplace blackened with soot. Above the mantel, another portrait hung, smaller. A family this time. A woman, 2 children, their faces blurred, distorted, as though smeared by invisible hands. Jacob shivered. In the dining room, the long oak table was still set. Plates cracked, silverware rusted, glasses clouded with filth. But the chairs, every chair was pulled out, as though whoever sat there had risen, all at once, and never returned. Jacob's throat was tight. It looks like they just left a sound cut him off. A knock. From upstairs. 3 sharp raps. Jacob froze, his skin crawling. "Someone's here." "No," Harlan said quickly, firmly. "Not someone. Something. Stay close." He opened his black case, fingers moving with practiced precision. He withdrew a small vial filled with thick, crimson liquid and dabbed it across the doorway they had just passed. The liquid smoked on contact with the wood, hissing, as though the house itself rejected it. "Wards," Harlan muttered. "Temporary. Nothing more." Jacob's pulse thundered in his ears. He tried to speak, but his voice cracked. "Harlan, why does it feel like it's waiting for us?" Harlan's eyes flicked toward the ceiling. His expression was unreadable, but his voice was low, grim, because it is. Another knock, louder, closer, then a laugh, high-pitched, childlike, echoing. Down the staircase. Jacob stumbled back, his heart slamming against his ribs. "That was a lure," Harlan snapped. "Don't follow it. Don't you dare follow it." But Jacob couldn't stop staring at the staircase, at the dark hallway above, where the shadows seemed thicker, deeper, alive. And from the top, of the stairs, something moved. A figure, small, frail, a child, its face hidden in shadow, its head tilted unnaturally to the side. "Daddy," the voice called. Soft, broken, trembling. Jacob's breath caught. His vision swam. He knew it was a trick, knew it wasn't real. And yet something in him wanted to believe. Behind him, Harlan whispered fiercely, his voice cutting like a blade. "Don't answer it, Jacob. Whatever you do, don't answer." The figure twitched. Its head jerked upright. And slowly, it began to crawl down the stairs, joint by joint, each motion sickening, deliberate, inhuman. The whispers rose, 1,000 voices at once, deafening, choking, filling the house, and Jacob realized they weren't guests here. They were prey. The child figure froze halfway down the stairs. Its head cocked, its limbs twisted at angles too sharp, too wrong. Then, with a sudden, jarring snap, it vanished like a flame snuffed out, like it had never been there at all. The whispers thinned, retreating into the walls. The silence that followed was worse. Jacob's knees trembled. His throat burned. He wanted to run, to tear open the front door, to drag his mother's words back into his chest and stitch them into his bones. "Don't go, Jacob, don't go," but his body wouldn't move. Harlan's voice cut through the stillness, steady, cold. "It's testing you. The house knows your weak points. It will use them. Memories, fears, faces." Jacob swallowed, his voice little more than a whisper. "That was a kid. That was not a child." Harlan snapped, his eyes sharp, glittering. "That was bait." Jacob forced himself to look away from the staircase. His gaze drifted across the parlor, the fireplace, the hallway beyond. That's when he saw it. The door, narrow, wooden, wedged into the far wall, half hidden behind a collapsed bookshelf. The paint was blistered, blackened, as though scorched. A rusted chain crossed the frame, secured with a heavy padlock, its surface, eaten by time, and etched into the wood faint. Shallow, but unmistakable were symbols, circles, lines, jagged marks that twisted like veins. Jacob felt his chest seize. "Harlan," he whispered, pointing. What's down there?" Harlan followed his gaze. For the first time since entering the house, Jacob saw its hesitation. Old man's jaw clenched. His hand tightened on the black case. His answer came low, deliberate, like a confession he did not want to give. "The heart of it." The whispers stirred again, crawling under Jacob's skin. "Down here, waiting. Jacob's breath hitched. "We should leave." "No," Harlan said sharply, stepping forward. "We can't. The source is beneath us. Until it's faced, until it's contained. The house will keep bleeding into you, into this land, into anyone who crosses it." Jacob's pulse thudded in his ears. He took a step back. "You don't get it. I can feel it. It's not just whispering anymore. It's inside me, pulling." Harlan's head snapped toward him. His eyes narrowed. "That's why you can't leave. If you walk out now, Jacob, it'll follow you home, to your mother, to anyone you loved." Jacob froze, the weight of the words crushing him. From somewhere deep below, faint but clear, something knocked, 1, 2, 3 times. Slow, heavy, hollow. The padlock on the basement door rattled. Jacob stumbled backward, his breath tearing out of him. No. Harlan was already moving. He knelt at the lock, pulling a key from his case, the metal ancient, blackened with age. Jacob's voice cracked. "What the hell are you doing?" "Preparing," Harlan said. The lock resisted, groaned, then clicked open. The chain sagged, fell away, clattering against the floor like a death rattle. The whispers surged, no longer faint, no longer background noise, but loud, layered, a chorus of voices screaming and pleading, desperate, hungry. "Come closer. Open it. Let us in." Jacob pressed his hands over his ears, but it did nothing. The voices weren't just sound, they were inside, crawling through his thoughts, twisting them, drowning them. His knees buckled. He sank to the floor, gasping. Dependent at his throat, pulsed cold, colder, so cold it burned. Through blurred vision, he saw Harlan's hand on the door, pressing against the symbols carved into the wood. His lips moved, muttering words Jacob couldn't understand, words older than the walls themselves. The door groaned, shuddered. From the other side came a sound, not a knock, a laugh. Low, guttural, inhuman. Jacob's stomach lurched. He clawed at the floorboards, his nails catching on splinters. Every instinct in him screaming, "Run, run. Don't let him open it." "Harlan, stop please." But Harlan's voice only grew louder, firmer, his chant echoing through the room. The door trembled. Dust rained from the ceiling. The floor vibrated beneath their feet, and then the lockless door creaked open, just an inch, enough a wave of air burst forth, hot, rancid, alive. The whispers erupted into shrieks, howls, wails, every voice overlapping until Jacob thought his skull would crack, and in that instant he saw it. Something moving in the darkness beyond, something that was not human. The door gaped open, just an inch, yet the air that bled through it was unbearable. Thick, wet, rancid, as if the lungs of the house had exhaled after years of rot. Jacob gagged, bile rising in his throat, his body convulsing. From the darkness inside, something shifted. Not footsteps, not movement he could place, but the scrape of bone against stone, the slither of flesh over wood, the wet drag of something heavy pulling itself forward. Jacob's nails dug into the floor. Harlan, close it, please, for God's sake. But Harlan didn't move. His hands pressed against the doorframe, his chant sharp, biting, inhuman. The symbols carved into the wood glowed faintly, pulsing red, as though the house itself was bleeding through them. Then a hand emerged, not a hand like Jacob knew. Its fingers were too long, too thin, each joint bending twice, 3 times, the nails black, jagged, curling like hooks. The skin was gray, slick, wet, glistening under the faint light dot. It clutched the doorframe and pulled. The wood groaned, the hinges screamed, the gap widened, and the voices erupted in triumph, hungry, free. Take him, take him, take him. Jacob staggered to his feet, his chest heaving, every nerve in his body firing. He reached for Harlan, grabbing his coat, shaking him. You don't know what you're doing. But when Harlan turned, Jacob froze. His eyes, they weren't the same. Not sharp, not steady, not human. They were black, glossy, reflecting nothing. And when he spoke, it wasn't one voice. It was dozens, hundreds, all speaking through him. We do know, Jacob. Jacob stumbled back. His pulse crashed in his ears. You know, you're not. Harlan's lips twisted into something between a smile and a snarl. His hands shot forward, gripping Jacob's wrist with impossible strength. The cold seared through Jacob's arm. His bones screamed, his vision blurred, and from the basement, the thing crawled further. Its head appeared first. If it could be called a head, a skull stretched, long, too long, with empty sockets that dripped shadow. Its jaw hung loose, broken, swinging side to side, teeth like shards of glass clicking against one another. It had no eyes, yet Jacob felt its stare burning through him, pinning him, splitting him open. He screamed. The pendant at his throat flared, sudden, violent, a burst of freezing light that cut through the dark. Harlan's grip faltered. The thing recoiled, hissing, its head snapping back, smoke spilling from its sockets. Jacob tore himself free, falling against the parlor wall, gasping, choking, clutching the pendant. For the first time, Harlan blinked as though waking from something deep, suffocating. His eyes cleared. For just a moment, his voice rasped, cracked. Human again. Jacob, don't let it, don't. Then the darkness surged. The thing lunged, dragging itself halfway into the room. Its body followed, ribcage split open, spine exposed, limbs twisting like ropes. The stench of it, the weight of it, filled the air until Jacob thought he would drown. The whispers turned to screams. Every wall shook, every window rattled, the house itself convulsed. Jacob's voice broke into a sob. Harlan, we can't fight, that we can't. But Harlan's voice rose again, stronger, cutting through the chaos, chanting in that same guttural tongue. His case lay open at his feet inside, knives of silver, vials of crimson liquid, pages inked in languages Jacob couldn't read. He snatched a blade, its edge glimmering faintly in the pendant's glow. The creature roared. The sound was not sound, it was inside Jacob's head, splitting it, tearing his thoughts apart. He fell to his knees, blood spilling from his nose, his eyes burning, and in the chaos, in the storm of screams, the trembling floor, the crawling dark. Jacob realized something. The thing wasn't trying to kill them. Not yet. It was trying to get out. The door behind it gaped wider. The chains scattered, the wards cracked and smoking. If it pulled itself through, if it entered fully, the house would no longer contain it, and there would be no stopping it. The creature writhed in the doorway, half born, half trapped. Harlan's chants lashed against it like chains of sound, forcing it back, inch by inch, though Jacob could see his strength waning. The house shook, the walls bled whispers. The air cracked with pressure, then suddenly, everything stopped. The screams cut out. The vibrations ceased. The monster froze in place, its twisted body locked mid-crawl, like a grotesque statue. And the silence was absolute. Jacob staggered backward, his breath ragged, his pendant cold against his skin. He blinked. The house shifted. Not the house as it was now, but as it used to be. The walls weren't rotted. The floorboards weren't warped. The air smelled of cedar and smoke, of food cooking somewhere deeper inside. Light poured from the chandeliers above, warm, golden, almost inviting. For a heartbeat. Jacob thought he had escaped, until he saw them figures, dozens of them, men, women, children, scattered throughout the parlor, frozen in place, their faces pale, their eyes wide, their mouths locked in screams that made no sound. Their bodies were twisted, caught mid-motion, some clawing at invisible chains, some clutching their throats, some reaching desperately toward the door that Jacob knew would never open for them. Jacob's knees buckled. Oh God. The closest figure, a woman in a dress from another century, snapped her head toward him. Her jaw fell open, and suddenly, her scream had sound high, piercing, endless. The others joined. The room filled with their cries, a tidal wave of agony that pounded against Jacob's skull. He clamped his hands over his ears, but it didn't matter. The sound wasn't just sound. It was memory, force-fed into him, shoved down his throat, burned into his veins. Flashes, a family seated at the long dining table, smiling, laughing until every candle snuffed at once, darkness swallowing them whole. A group of children playing on the stairs, till one by one they vanished, yanked backward into the shadows, their laughter twisting into shrieks. A preacher standing in the parlor, Bible raised high until his body convulsed, bones snapping under invisible hands, his voice choking on the last prayer he would ever say. Jacob fell to the ground, gasping, clawing at the floorboards. The visions didn't stop. They only came faster, harder. The house was showing him everything it had ever taken, every life it had swallowed, every soul it had kept. And with each flash, Jacob felt himself unraveling, as if their terror was becoming his own. His chest heaved, his eyes blurred, his mind frayed to threads. No, stop, please, stop. But the house had no mercy. One final memory slammed into him, violent, raw, suffocating. A girl, alone, locked in the basement. Her fingernails torn bloody against the door as she clawed, screamed, begged. Please, Daddy, please open it. Her voice broke into sobs. Her hands weakened. Her body slumped. And from behind her, in the black of the basement, something vast, something endless, something hungry reached out. Jacob jolted back into the present, his scream ripping from his throat. The visions shattered, the house snapping back to its rotted, ruined state. The monster was gone. The door was closed. Harlan lay slumped on the floor, blood dripping from his nose, his chest heaving, his eyes fluttered open, glazed, hollow. Jacob crawled toward him, shaking. What the hell just happened? What was that? Harlan's lips moved, his voice rasping, broken. It remembers. It makes you remember. It feeds you what it wants. Jacob swallowed hard, his stomach churning, bile in his throat. The screams of the dead still echoed in his skull. Their faces burned behind his eyes. And for the first time, he understood this house wasn't just haunted. It was alive, and it carried every soul it had ever devoured. The house breathed. Jacob swore he could hear it, wood expanding, contracting, sighing. The sound of timber straining was no longer just the creak of an old frame. It was lungs. It was ribs. It was alive. Harlan struggled to his feet, his face pale, blood still dripping from his nose. He clutched the silver blade, but his hands shook. His voice was hoarse. "It's not holding anymore. The seals are breaking." Jacob wanted to scream at him, demand answers, but then drip. A single drop of dark red liquid fell from the ceiling, splattering across the floorboards between them. Both men froze. Drip, drip, drip. More drops followed, steady, rhythmic, until the ceiling seemed to sweat blood. Thick streaks ran down the faded wallpaper, tracing the symbols carved into the wood, filling the grooves. The smell was metallic, sharp, suffocating. Jacob gagged, pressing a hand over his mouth. Jesus Christ. The whispers grew louder, not around them, inside them. The house was no longer speaking from the walls, but from their own veins, their own skulls. Every voice layered, overlapping, cutting, screaming, "Free us, bleed with us, become us." Harlan staggered, his knees buckling, but he forced the blade up, slashing across the wallpaper. The blood recoiled, sizzling against the silver. "It's trying to weaken us, don't listen, Jacob." But Jacob was already slipping, his vision blurred. The floor shifted beneath him, rippling like flesh. He stumbled, landing hard, his hands sinking into something warm, wet. He looked down. The wooden planks weren't wood anymore. They pulsed, they moved. Veins crawled beneath their surface. Blood seeped through the cracks, and faces, oh God, faces pressed up from beneath the boards. Dozens of them, hundreds. Their eyes rolled back, their mouths opening and closing soundlessly, as if drowning beneath an endless ocean of timber and rot. Their skin split, their teeth shattered, their nails clawed upward, dragging grooves into the planks. Jacob screamed, scrambling back, but the faces followed, stretching the floor like thin rubber, pressing closer, mouths widening into gaping, black voids. "Don't look at them," Harlan roared, his voice nearly lost in the storm of whispers. He hurled a vial of crimson liquid to the floor. It shattered, and the air filled with smoke and iron. The faces beneath the boards shrieked, retreating, but the walls responded. They convulsed. The wallpaper tore open like skin, split wide, and blood erupted outward, spraying in thick arcs. The chandeliers above swung wildly, their chains rattling. From every corner of the house came the same sound, bones grinding, tendons snapping, as though the structure itself was reassembling. Jacob collapsed against the wall, his breath ragged. We can't fight this, it's everywhere. It is the house." Harlan's face twisted, his eyes burning with grim resolve. "Not the house. What's inside it? The walls are its flesh, the floor's its stomach, the basement its womb." The words hit Jacob like a hammer. His mind reeled, his body shaking. "Womb? What the hell are you talking about?" Before he could finish, the parlor door slammed shut. The room darkened, every window blackened, as if swallowed by tar. The air turned thick, choking, every breath a battle. And then the voices unified. For the first time since Jacob entered this place, the whispers weren't 1,000 fragments. They were one voice, one terrible, perfect voice, rising from every wall, every floorboard, every drop of blood. "You opened the womb. Now it will be born." The walls split wider. Blood gushed out, flooding across the floor, soaking Jacob's jeans, splashing against his chest. He clawed his way upward, his pendant flashing, the only light in the suffocating dark. But the faces in the blood were no longer silent. They screamed, high, jagged, desperate screams that filled the room, drowning Jacob's mind. He pressed his hands to his ears, but it was inside him, vibrating through his bones. The blood rose higher, dragging him to his knees. The faces pressed against him, mouths opening against his skin, teeth grazing, tongues lashing. Harlan plunged the silver blade into the wall, shouting a chant so loud his voice cracked. The blood recoiled, hissing, but another split tore open, wider, vomiting more crimson into the room. The floor trembled. Something massive shifted beneath them. Jacob knew, in that instant, that the creature in the basement was no longer confined to the basement. The entire house was its body. The blood surged to Jacob's chest, cold and burning all at once. He gasped, choking, clawing at the pendant, but the weight dragged him under. For one fleeting moment, as the crimson swallowed his face, he saw them. Again the girl, the preacher, the children, all screaming, all drowning. Their eyes locked on him, as if begging him to join them, and then the blood closed over him. The blood swallowed Jacob whole. It filled his nose, his lungs, his ears, pressing into every crevice, every pore. The faces swam around him in the crimson tide, screaming, clawing, begging, their mouths opening wide enough to split their jaws in half. Their eyes rolled white, then black, then disappeared entirely, leaving only sockets that wept more blood. Jacob kicked upward, thrashing, but there was no surface, no air, no escape. His pendant burned against his chest, a shard of light in the suffocating dark. It pulsed, once, twice, then exploded in a flash that ripped the blood apart like fire in oil. He crashed to the floor, coughing, vomiting red onto the boards. His chest heaved, his throat raw. The parlor was unrecognizable. The walls bulged outward, swollen, pulsing with veins. The ceiling cracked, sagging downward like a stretched stomach. The air smelled of rot, of wet meat left in the sun. Harlan stood in the center of it all, his blade gleaming, his body trembling, blood running from his ears. He turned, his eyes wild. It's coming through. Jacob, it's being born. The house groaned, deeper than thunder, deeper than earthquakes. From the floor beneath them, a crack tore open. Not wood, not stone, flesh, a wound. It split wider, gaping, vomiting streams of blood and black fluid, and from within something moved. Something enormous. Something that had waited far too long. Jacob staggered back, bile rising in his throat. What the hell is that? The wound widened. The boards shattered, and a hand erupted from the floor. But it wasn't a hand. It was all hands. Dozens, maybe hundreds, fused together, twisting, writhing, clawing at the air. Fingers merged in two. Fingers, nails splitting, bones cracking. The flesh pulsing, as if trying to decide what shape to take. Jacob screamed. The mass pulled itself upward, dragging a body the size of the room with it. Its head tore. What should have been a head pushed through the wound, stretching into the parlor. It was a face, but not one face. 100 faces, all fused together, their mouths opening and closing, screaming in unison, their skin tearing. As they strained against each other, Harlan raised the blade high. Keep your eyes down. Don't let it see you. But Jacob couldn't look away. The creature's eyes saw. Many eyes rolled and blinked and stared, each one belonging to a different victim, each one alive. The ceiling split, chunks of plaster, and would rain down. The chandelier snapped free and crashed into the blood below, sending waves splashing across the room. The voices rose, deafening, endless dot, and through the storm of sound came one voice, louder than all the rest. You opened the womb. You set me free. Jacob clutched his head, the voice splitting his skull. Stop, stop. The creature dragged itself higher, its torso sliding free. Its body wasn't flesh, but architecture, walls and beams and brick and bone fused together. Windows blinked like eyes. Doors slammed open and shut like mouths. Blood poured from every crack, every seam. The house itself was rising, twisting, becoming dot, and Jacob understood. With a horror too vast and named, The house wasn't giving birth to something. The house was the birth. Every scream, every soul, every death had been feeding, growing, with gestating, and now it was ready to step into the world. Harlan staggered forward, his chance turning desperate, his blade slashing against the writhing flesh. Each strike burned, but the creature didn't slow. It simply grew faster, the walls bowing outward, the ceiling collapsing inward. "Jacob," Harlan roared. "The pendant, who's it now?" Jacob looked down. The pendant glowed white-hot, vibrating, pulsing with an energy that felt alive. His hand trembled, his chest seized. The screams in his head twisted, turned, reshaped, and then he realized the pendant wasn't just light, it was a vessel for what the house had taken. Every soul, every scream, every memory. They weren't only trapped in the walls, they were trapped in him. The pendant throbbed harder, as if waiting. The creature rose higher, its arms stretching, its mouths opening. Its many faces screamed one word, Jacob's name. Harlan shoved him. "Do it, or we're all damned." Jacob's breath hitched. His skin burned. The voices screamed inside him, clawing, begging, demanding release. He ripped the pendant from his chest, held it high in the house, stopped breathing. Every voice went silent. Every wall froze. The creature paused, its 100 faces twitching, staring dot, and then the pendant cracked. The pendant cracked. Light burst from its core, blinding, searing, tearing through the dark. Jacob screamed, his body arching, his veins glowing white, as if liquid fire poured through them. The house convulsed, the walls splitting wider, the creature rearing back in pain. Every face in its body shrieked at once, a tidal wave of horror that rattled the bones of the earth. Windows shattered, doors blew off their hinges, and the air was filled with 1,000 howls. Harlan dropped to his knees, his hands over his ears. "Do it, Jacob. Don't hold back." But Jacob's mind was splitting apart. The pendant was no longer just light, it was a door, and every soul trapped in the house was forcing its way through him. Children cried, women screamed, men howled in rage. He saw their deaths, the preacher's knife, the drowned girl, the starving families. He felt their agony, their despair, their hunger. His chest burned with every life devoured by the house. And then he understood. The pendant wasn't just a vessel. It was a choice. He could release them, but not without a cost. The house roared, its body lurching upward, beams snapping, foundations groaning. Its many arms clawed toward Jacob, every face twisting in rage. "You are mine, your blood, your soul, your flesh mine." Jacob staggered to his feet, blood pouring from his eyes, his nose, his mouth. His body wasn't his anymore. It was theirs. Every soul inside him screamed for release, screamed for revenge. Harlan rose beside him, his blade ready, his voice hoarse. "Jacob, listen to me. If you free them, you'll die. It'll take you with them." Jacob's lips trembled, his voice cracked. Maybe that's the point." The house lunged. Jacob tore the pendant apart. The light erupted, white and endless, filling every corner, burning through every shadow. The faces in the walls screamed not in agony, but in release. Their mouths opened wide, their voices uniting. In one final cry, as they tore free from the creature's flesh, souls poured out in rivers of light, rising through the ceiling, blasting through the roof, shooting into the night sky. The house wailed, its body collapsing, its flesh melting, its beams snapping. Blood turned to ash, veins to smoke. The creature shriveled, writhing, shrinking into itself. Harlan stumbled back, his arms shielding his face. The heat was unbearable, the light searing, but he did not run. He watched as Jacob fell to his knees, his body glowing, cracking, splitting apart. The souls ripped through him, each one screaming as it left, each one tearing a piece of him away. His skin split, his veins burst, his eyes burned white. He was dying, but he was smiling. For the first time, the whispers were gone. The creature collapsed, the house folding inward, walls imploding, beams snapping like bones. The ground split, the foundation crumbling, until nothing remained but smoke, fire, and silence. When the light faded, Harlan was alone. The house was gone. So was Jacob. Harlan fell to the earth, his chest heaving, his blade clattering to the dirt. He stared at the smoldering ruin, the ashes swirling in the night air. For a moment, he thought he heard voices, soft, gentle, peaceful, drifting away into the stars. But then, silence. Only the wind remained. Weeks later, a construction crew arrived at the lot on Hollow Creek Road. They found nothing but blackened soil, twisted nails, and fragments of stone. But one of them, a young man, barely 20, swore he saw something glinting in the dirt. He reached down, brushing away the ash. Thought it was a shard of silver, a piece of a pendant. He picked it up, turned it over in his hand. For just a moment, he thought he heard something, a whisper, faint, like a breath against his ear. "We are still here." The boy frowned, slipped the shard into his pocket, and walked on. Behind him, the wind carried a voice, low and hungry. The house was gone, but the womb was never empty.